Meeting of the Revere Zoning Board of Appeals will now come to order. Roll call.
Mr. Bacilli? Mr. Corrin? Mr. D'Angelo? Mr. Mazzoni? Mr. Tucker?
Present.
And Mr. Colometto is absent. The first matter before the board is application A1515 of Julie Diossi Bernardo, 89 Dale Street, Revere, and David Massey, D&D LLC, 25 Reedy Drive, Wakefield, requesting a qualified buildable lot variance for Lot 320 Dale Street to enable the appellant to construct a two-family dwelling, and a parking variance for Lot 319 Dale Street at 89 Dale Street to enable the appellant to maintain an existing two-family dwelling. This matter was continued for the meeting of September 23rd, 2015.
Is the applicant or their counsel here?
Richard Vigliotti, 385 Broadway, Revere. I'm filling in today for Attorney Cipolletta, who could not be here. I represent the owner of the property, Julie Dorsey Bernardo, and it's for the sale of the property, the abutting lot to her existing home, which is a two-family home. I believe at the last meeting it was requested that an updated plot plan be submitted, and I submitted that this afternoon to the clerk, along with a proposed common driveway agreement. I submit to the board that the applicable ordinance seems to have been created for this particular issue. If I can just read the preamble for the ordinance, it says the City Council has found that many landowners have faced an undue hardship paying property taxes for vacant land which is assessed as buildable lots, when because these vacant lots have been held in common ownership with other lots. That's exactly the fact pattern here. There are two lots owned by my client, one with an existing two-family house. The other is a vacant lot that meets all of the requirements of a grandfathered lot: frontage, lot size, etc. Preamble continues, if the lots could not be built upon without the permission of the Zoning Board of Appeals. When my client went before the building department and the site plan review committee, it was determined that because the existing lot was undersized, that variances might be needed with respect to parking for the existing building. This particular ordinance provides that as long as certain requirements are met, the only requirement is for two parking spaces, off-street parking spaces, for the existing lot. Those parking spaces exist at the present time. A variance is needed because the ordinance requires that the width of the driveway for these two spaces, which can be in tandem, be 8 feet. They currently measure 7.8 feet and 7.9 feet. But for 2/10 and 1/10 of a foot, they don't meet the requirement, and therefore the variance is needed. In addition to the variance, the problem can be solved with the common driveway agreement. This will allow my client to sell the vacant lot to the additional applicant, Dave Massey, who has the necessary parking for his project. The common driveway will have only one curb cut to be utilized by both owners after the sale takes place. Again, because the ordinance provides for a lesser width, driveway width. It's called modified parking spaces. Only 8 feet is required. We're asking the board to grant the variance on the driveway width and allow the project on the vacant lot to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing that it's a public hearing, I'll ask if there are any proponents? Proponents, pro. Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Does the councilor wish to speak?
Gentlemen, Stephen Reardon, Ward 4 City Council. I represent the district in which this variance is requested. I want to say something that generally about variances such as this. We've been granting them for far too long. I have neighbors here who are against this. We have a major parking issue in the city. And I would like to suggest that despite what our ordinance may say, or the feelings that may have been expressed in the ordinance, the Chapter 48, the Section 10, addresses variances and what can and cannot be done and what criteria must be presented to the granting authority, which of course is you, gentlemen, for such a variance. And it says that you must find all of the above, all conditions required by Section 10, which is that the granting authority must specifically find that owing to circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape, or topography of such land or structures, and especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting the generally the zoning district in which it is located, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance or bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner appellant, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent or purpose of such ordinance or bylaw. One of the intents of the bylaw was to eliminate overly dense development in the city of Revere, and specifically, I believe, to address parking issues. We have seen recently parking issues becoming more and more, particularly in the wintertime, burdensome for us. No one has to be reminded of what last winter looked like and removing snow on our streets with cars that had a right to be there and could not be moved or would not be moved. It made our winter a disaster. But getting back to what you must find in order to grant this ordinance, the variance rather, there is no condition that suggests here that this has a right to be granted. There is none of the things that you must find are here. First of all, when the zoning was changed back in 1994 to not permit this type of development by way of several different techniques in the zoning ordinance, it would not have affected anybody who owned the property at that time. But going forward, everybody was on notice that if they had a lot such as this, they were bound to own the lot and not expect to be able to develop it unless they could present satisfy this statute, which they simply cannot do. And that was made known to anybody who was buying the property. These folks bought the property knowing full well. Now they're attempting to sell the property and essentially double the value of the property going forward. And essentially not suffering a financial hardship, but actually making a boon on their original purchase. That's completely unfair. It's completely derogatory to our zoning ordinance, and it's something we need to stop permitting. You know, we've been talking a lot about residential development, overly dense residential development. I know most of the time it's been directed at developers of large plots of land, but we need to start somewhere. We need to realize that when you drive down Broadway this afternoon at 5 o'clock, you're not going to be able to get down the end of it for 20 minutes. There's just too many people, there's too many cars, and there's too many people in this city. And as long as we continue to squish houses together, as long as we continue to allow unferreted development and even undersized lots such as this is, we're going to have this problem, we're going to have it more. So I respectfully ask that you deny this variance. I respectfully ask that you adhere to the conditions of the statute, and that you find that none of these conditions exist that would allow the variance to be issued. Thank you.
Are there any other opponents? Kindly state your name and address for the record, please.
Eileen McGill, 423 Bain Street, 2 houses up from where they want to build. I knew the people who lived in there previous to that, and I knew that is not a buildable lot. She told me for years. And her father built the house. So even then, it was not a buildable lot. These people bought it 5 years ago. They want to sell it and put a 2-family on. They're selling it to a developer. I have a friend who is very big on restoring houses, and she was telling me that developers are going into Revere, and they're buying up land, and they're putting houses on the land, and they're not requiring the square footage. These people do not live in that 2-family house. They have not lived in there for almost a year. She will not move back. I don't blame her. A bullet went through her window. But however, they're going to build that 2-family house, sell the other 2-family house, and go to live in their dream house and leave us stuck holding the bag. As it is now, the parking is terrible. And when they come around the corner from Dale Street, where that house is, and park on Vane, they're actually parking on side of the street that there is no parking. So all these laws are being broken. And there are several people in the neighborhood that are against this. And I don't know what else to do. But we are against it.
Thank you. Are there any other opponents? So you gave your name, you opposed the last time. Do we have opposition last time from 2 people? So on the record, there are the 2 people that are opposed the last meeting. Could the letter be submitted to the clerk, please? Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Do you have something to say, Counselor?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, clear up some of the misstatements by the last speaker. First of all, this is a buildable lot. It has the necessary square footage. It has the necessary frontage. Clearly, it is a buildable lot. And to say that my clients do not live on Dale Street in the 2-family house is an egregious misstatement. My client lives there with her husband and their young child. They intend to remain in Revere. They intend to raise their child in Revere. Also, with respect to the statements made by Councilor Reardon, I'm surprised to hear that making a profit on the sale of real estate is a bad thing, even in Revere. And as far as topographical issues, parking in the rear of the existing building is not possible because of a slope in the rear of the building. So as far as topography, it meets that criteria for the board. With respect to the parking issue, it's been a 2-family house literally from the time it was built in the early 1900s. 2-family house is currently in use. Parking spaces off-street, there are 2. Any on-street parking spaces apparently have not caused any problem and will not cause any further problem. because it will continue to exist as a two-family. I don't see how, by allowing the existing off-street parking to be confirmed by variance, will somehow increase the traffic and on-street parking on Dale Street as it currently exists, especially given the fact that the proposed project on the vacant lot has the necessary 4 spaces, off-street spaces, required by the ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to the next calendar item number.
The next item is calendar item number A1517. This is a special permit application of James J. Salona. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Salona called earlier in the day to indicate the wish to continue this. Again, his engineer has not completed the proper drawings for presentation to the board.
Is there a motion on the floor to offer a continuance?
Question comes on continuance of this matter to the next meeting. Mr. Bacilli? Yes. Mr. Corrin? Yes. Mr. D'Angelo? Yes. Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this is continued to November 18th at 4 p.m. The
That will
next-
be,
Pardon?
what would the date be?
November 18th.
Okay.
The next application is the application of this is application A1518. This is the application of Mary Ann Simeone, 300 Broadway, Revere, requesting a parking variance to enable the appellant to convert approximately 4,000 gross square feet of floor space for a religious facility within the existing non-conforming structure located at 300 Broadway, Revere.
I believe that they are asking for a continuance. I did get a call and was asked that they continue.
I'm not sure if Attorney Simeone actually
But
filed it.
you,
Can hear
there
me
you
now?
go. Yep.
I'm not sure if Attorney Simeone called it, asked for it, but he has been, he discussed the matter with me, and I agreed, and this, by the way, has no effect on how I feel about it, but out of fairness, he wanted to have, engage the community in a community meeting. So I'm surprised that he didn't file any paperwork to continue it, but I believe he does seek a continuance, and I would certainly not be an objection to a continuance for further discussion on it if that's what he feels is necessary. So I agreed to assist him in gathering the necessary parties. My understanding is you have a petition there at some point. A petition has been filed by Stephanie DeSisto and other neighbors that's in the file. And so I think Attorney Simeone actually has a copy of that petition. I've asked him to contact everybody on that list and tell them and let me know when he wants to have the community meeting, and I'd assist him in that. So again, I have no objection.
Okay, he did state to me that he wished to continue this, and he was going to speak to the ward councilor. Is there a motion on the floor to continue?
Question comes on continuing this matter to November 18th at 4 p.m. Mr. Bacilli? Yes. Mr. Corrin? Yes. Mr. D'Angelo? Yes. Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this matter is continued to November 18th at 4 p.m. Returning to the first calendar item, Julie Diossi Bernardo, 89 Dale Street, Revere, and David Massey requesting the variances previously cited.
Roll call?
Question comes on granting the relief requested by the appellant. Mr. Bacilli? No. Mr. Corrin? No. Mr. D'Angelo? No. Mr. Mazzoni? Present. Mr. Tucker?
No?
No. The application is denied. No further business.
Next meeting will be on November 18th,
November 18th at 4
4
p.m.
p.m.